Good morning, my name is Dave Rodriguez.
My name is Ernesto Duani.
My name is Rafael Ventura.
And my name is Will Derrickson. So, the 26th Amendment is a very important topic when speaking about the continuing lowering of the voting age. The 26th Amendment shows the responsibilities adults have that 17-year-olds do not share. So, the voting age was 21 in most states until 1971, where they passed the 26th Amendment that lowered it to 18. The state legislatures believed that any age under 21 did not have the education or maturity to be able to vote. However, as the Secretary of State of Michigan states, during the Vietnam War, almost half of the deaths were men of the ages of 18 to 20. This led to many protests for their voting rights if they had to have the responsibility of fighting in a war. This is supported by this propaganda pin that shows many of the arguments that they had during this time period. Now, how does this relate to 17-year-olds? Well, 17-year-olds do not have the same responsibility as adults have, such as being in the draft and going to official adult jails. The reasoning for the voting age being lowered was not related to the maturity of these young adults, but instead, as I stated, the responsibilities that they have. By this logic, the same reasoning cannot be applied to continuing to lower the voting age. This is also supported by more propaganda that they use.
Some politicians do not believe that younger voters can be mature enough in choosing a presidential candidate. One of the main reasons as to why the voting age should not be lowered to 17 is because teenagers and young adults are irresponsible and do dangerous things. They put themselves and others in dangerous situations, such as when driving. Heather Wilhelm, a columnist for the National Review, wrote an article called "The Revolution Will Not Be Truthful." In this article, she wrote about her past experiences. One experience being when she was driving her van and she suddenly started driving it off-road halfway into a forest, not realizing it until she drove over a pothole. While it may be true that she is only one person and cannot be used as an accurate representation of all teenagers and young adults, she does serve an example of how mentally immature they can be. Wilhelm also wrote about an attempt to lower the voting age by Democrats in March of this year, but should not receive enough support to be passed. In 2004 and 2008, the total voter turnout for 18 to 29-year-olds peaked at 47%. In 2012 and 2016, it was 42%, showing a decrease instead of an expected increase. What all this data basically shows is that young adults are not as interested in voting as one may believe them to be.
Thank you, Rafael, for that point of view. So for an educational and kind of social point of view of this big problem, we'll have to read this quote. It says, "When I was 17, I went skiing for the first time. I did not first learn to stop or turn. Instead, I went directly to a very large hill at the center of a resort that everyone could see. Next, I bumped straight down and marched two before crashing through an entire sky-lift line." This quote was from Heather Wilhelm from "The Revolution Will Not Be Fruitful," and the main topic is that 17-year-olds lack not only experience but also maturity, but not also maturity but experience. It's like combined the two of them. So to take a deeper look at this problem, we have to look at some pros. And one of them is that allowing 17-year-olds will allow them to have more importance of their thoughts in their politics world. So they'll be like voting for what they think will be right. But we still shouldn't allow them to vote because 17-year-olds are in senior year in high school, which would be grade 12. And they still don't know how the government is structured because this year they normally take US government, which can relate to me, for example, which makes them lack experience and maturity, making them not make the right decisions in order to pick which laws will be best fit for the government. And then the difference from the 18 years old is that they were picked from the Vietnam War and they just have more experience. And you asked me, how could 1 year of experience differ so much from one or the another? And that's just basic. They have more experience, they're older, and just is natural. So now let's take a deeper look at the 26th Amendment. especially the section number 1, which is the most important one. It says the right of citizens of the United States who are 18 years old of age or older to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of age. So that basically explains how this amendment affects the 18 years old, because it denies the state from not allowing them to vote in the federal elections. That's a little bit of overwording, but I think it's clear.
Parents have become more burdened by the responsibilities of their children and the burdens that come from lowering voting age. The data here is from the article, The Revolution Will Not Be Fruitful by Heather Wilhelm. And there it shows how parents who have children the ages 18 to 28, 74% of them still make doctor appointments for their children. 72% still remind their children of deadlines, including schoolwork. And 15% regularly text their children to wake them up. This all shows how children depend on their parents for many different things. This shows how their children depend on their parents for many things. And so parents would most likely, as seen here, parents already guide their children with many different things, and we can assume that when it comes to voting, children will also come to their parents as well. If voting age were to be lowered, it'd be for the teenagers to have a unique voice in government and not to be an echo of their parents. And their parents will also have to face the responsibility of guiding their children into voting when they have so many other obligations in their lives, especially when their child is still in high school. Some people may say that voting age should still be lowered for those who are below 18 years old and they are still mature regardless of their age. 70-year-olds may desire a voice in government, but still not have one. So some people may use the 26th Amendment as an example to why the voting age should be lowered again, because the voting age was lowered to 18, which is a very young age, but then that happened because 18-year-olds were involved in the Vietnam War. But even so, the majority of teenagers and young adults are incapable of voting without the influence of their parents, and they're generally reckless, and not to mention the voting turnout is very much lower than other age groups. So even though not lowering the voting age will prevent the smaller percentage of mature people to vote at a young age, it will most importantly prevent immature people to vote. Those who desire to vote will have to wait to 18. Thank you. What questions do you have?
Just scoot together. You don't need to step forward. Just scoot together in front of the board. You don't need to come closer. Just scoot together. The light is bad if you guys all scoot together, I've noticed. All right, here we go. Got a question for each of you. We're going to start with Will first. Will, in the future, what changes would you make to your group norms, and how would you expect them to improve your team presentation?
Well, I think it's important that we do a lot of work in class where we're all together instead of doing most of it at home where we have less direct communication. So this will make our points flow better together instead of being separated.
All right. Next up, Rafael. Oops, I forgot to see what question you got. All right. Reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding of the problem that you identified?
I would say that Dave's lens of social and his stakeholder of parents really had the greatest impact on me, because he talked a lot about how parents took over the responsibilities of their children and how they scheduled appointments for them. So that really tied in with how teenagers can often make mistakes, which also Ernesto over here. He also talked about the skiing incident that Heather Willem had. That really helped with how I talked about them. How Heather Wilhelm talked about her driving incident.
Okay. Ernesto, you're up. In what way did you improve your ability to work with the group as a result of this project?
One of the abilities that I got from working in group in this project was about how to check each other's work and how to keep in touch, like checking each other and their progress on what we were still working. For like example, for the first week we kind of like were checking in each other, but then the second week we started like checking the essays and stuff we were doing. So we started like checking the progress and kind of like
Okay.
doing that. Sorry for the word.
And Dave, what's the strongest counter argument to your solution that that you guys identified?
The strongest counter argument that we identified was is that even though 17-year-olds are young, they can still, some of them may still be mature. Just like how like the 26th Amendment, like they lowered it to 18, which is a very close age. But even so, 17-year-olds are still going through like high school and just aren't mature.
You guys are done. You can breathe.